PTO. That really helped me out, and it's good. And it was really good to see them offering some money down to people in the 100th place, because that would have really, those guys would have really needed that, because if they can't race, they can't get any prize money at all.
That's Joe Skipper talking about the difference that PTO funding has made to his life and the life of other professionals this year. And this is the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors, PrecisionHydration.com. Electrolytes in different strengths that match how you sweat. You can get 15% off your first order with the code OxygenAddict15. And we're also brought to you by Peloton.cc, high performance sun protection for athletes. You can get 20% off with the code OxygenAddict20. And there's also a competition at Peloton.cc/OxygenAddict where you can win a bundle of high performance sun protection worth £100. All right, everybody, welcome to the show. This week's interview, we've got a cracker with you. We've got Joe Skipper back on the show telling us about his 12-hour time trial record-breaking ride, his return to racing. Talks about heading on up to the Helvellyn Triathlon, which will be very exciting for anybody who races in the Northwest. Since we recorded this, he's been rumbling some feathers on Twitter and trying to get other pros to come and race as well, with the rumor being that he's managing to get the PTO to stump up some cash for some prize money for the pros to race for there. So keep your eyes on that. There might be some British pros. I've heard a rumor that Ali Brownlee's considering racing. So, I'd love that to be true. Whether it is or not, you'll have to wait and see. Also, since we recorded it, Joe's landed himself an entry at Challenge Davos, which takes place this coming weekend. And that's a pretty good place to kick off the show. First up, we'll give a shout out to our sponsors, Precision Hydration. They make superb electrolyte sachets in different strengths that match how you sweat. So if you just are an average sweater, you can get their 250 milligram sachets. If you're a really heavy sweater like me, you can get 1500 milligrams. The great thing is, even though that's something like 6 times more concentrated than a standard electrolyte drink, it doesn't taste salty. They don't use sodium chloride, so you still get the sodium in there to help prevent cramps and help prevent hyponatremia and keep your body fluid levels balanced. It doesn't taste salty. It's not like the old days. It's a cracking product. I really, really recommend it. I used to struggle really badly with cramps. I used to get cramped up in my feet as I was turning and flip turning in the pool. I'd get cramps in my calves when I was on the turbo trainer. If I use Precision Hydration sachets, I do not have that problem. So it's absolutely fantastic. Get yourself over to precisionhydration.com and get that checked out. Right then, this week's results and news. First up, we'll talk about Challenge Davos in a minute, I think, because we've got some results to talk about. Did you watch Super League Tri this weekend? Taking place in Rotterdam, they had the Arena Games. They had 10 athletes competing for the males and 10 for the females. 200-meter swim, run around the pool, jump onto the bike, 4K on Zwift, and then onto the treadmill, one of those self-powered kind of parabolic treadmills for a 1K run. And then they changed the order of them. So there were 3 races there, triple mix racing. Each race was about 10 or 12 minutes long. And hats off to them. I think it worked really well. I was really impressed. I watched the whole thing on the Turbo on Sunday. I managed to crank out just close to 2 hours as the coverage was on. I thought Mac and Will McCloy did a brilliant job on the commentary. They were really interesting and really funny. I think the pair of them make a great commentary team. And there was some cracking racing as well. There was some really good, solid back-to-back, smashing each other around type racing. On the men's side, it all came down to the final race. Ended up with the winners being Justus Nieslag of Germany. He powered through in the final race to take it ahead of Vasco Valacha from Portugal. And then there was actually a 3-way tie for third, but it was given to Javier Gomez on countback. There was Johnny Brownlee and Jonas Skumberg as well. Jonas Skumberg was leading the whole way. And I've got to say, between Nieslag and Skumberg, Germany have got 2 rising little rock stars there. I tell you, they're both really good looking fellas. They were laughing with the camera and they've got like the pop star smiles going on. Very impressed with how easy they made it look. Schomburg in particular, I thought he had it locked up, and it all came down to the last race, which ended with a sprint finish on the bike, and he just got taken in the sprint, and that was enough to drop him down. But it was very close racing, and I thought it was really good. It was really worked. Over on the women's side, it wasn't as close. It was an absolute domination by Jess Lermonth. She's just the most incredible athlete. She said in the interviews afterwards that she was recovering during the swims, and she still put, 10, 20 meters into everybody else. So a really strong performance from her. Second place went to Rachel Klamer, and third place to Valerie Bartholomew of Belgium. Georgia Taylor-Brown of Great Britain was down in fifth. And again, there wasn't very much to choose between any of them. It made for really good, strong racing. I wonder whether that'll happen again. It's hats off to them for getting the racing happening and, really getting the fires burning again. And off the back of this really is half the press. This has just come onto Twitter 20 minutes ago as I'm recording now. It's been announced that WTS Hamburg, that's taking place on the 5th and 6th of September, is actually going to be the WTS World Championship for this year. It's going to be the only race they'll hold. The world champion is going to be announced. I learned of this actually before the official announcement came out, bouncing back some comments backwards and forwards with Christian Blumenfeld, because I read that he dropped out of Challenge Davos, and I was really fired up to watch him race Joe Skipper, and he said, no, I really want to win the WTS World Championships. I've got to put all my eggs in that basket. And I thought, what? So the athletes obviously had a little bit of a heads up before the rest of us. He's got a great video up. If you go through his Instagram channel, there's him, there's Casper Storns, there's Gustav Iden, the three of them traveling down from Portugal to race for their teams in France. They've got a 25-minute video that you've got to go and watch while you're on the turbo. They had an epic journey. The van they were in broke down. They had to kind of park this broken down van in a service station, walk out through the service station, carry the bikes over a fence. They rode the bikes along pretty much not even a gravel track, but a grass track, to find a road to ride and find a car hire place to do another 4 or 5 hours driving to get to this race in France that was taking place. So that's a cracking video that's worth a watch. And the three of them just seem like really good lads having a great time. Obviously, they're world-class athletes, but they also look like they're just having the time of their lives doing it as well. And I love watching that. We've had Gustav on before, but I'd love to get both Christian and Casper on the show and chat with those guys. So who knows, hopefully after Hamburg, we might be able to make that happen. Which takes us to Challenge Davos, actually. Let's talk about that a little bit. The PTO really have raised the game a bit. They've announced that they're doubling the prize pool. So it wasn't a massive prize pool in the first place. It was $3,500 on the line for first, $2,000 for second. What the PTO have done is they've doubled that prize pool, but instead of sort of doubling all the prize money, they've done a kind of equalizer between the men and the women, and they've said, right, the ideal time for the men's course, according to their algorithm, is 3:22. The ideal time for the women is 3:51. There's a very close to 30-minute difference between the two of them. And so what they're going to do is, when all the times are in at the end of it, they're going to equalize the times. They're going to deduct this time difference, 29:39, from the women's race times and see who effectively wins overall. And then this bonus prize money is going to go to the fastest athletes. They're paying 20 deep. So if there are 10 women who are faster than the rest of the men, they're going to get higher up in the prize money according to this kind of, don't really want to call it staggered or handicapped or equalized time difference thing. But the pay's going to go down to 20 deep, and they're paying €500 from 12th all the way through to 20th. So considering that, the top men and the top women, they're only going to get €500 for finishing in 6th, it's really going to pay the pros deep. Now, I had a nosy over on the starts list. There are 22 women racing and 45 men on the start list, and it's stacked. It's the first, proper middle distance race of the year. So, over on the men's side, big names racing. Let me see if I can find the the section that we talked about this. So Christian Blumenfeld isn't racing anymore, but we've got Joe Skipper racing, Sebi Kienle, Peter Heimrich, other names that I saw on this list here. I mean, it's really a who's who of the strong athletes around. Andy Bockerer is racing, Maurice Clavel, Andy Dreitz. Let's head on down the list here. Sebastian Kienle, I've already mentioned. Manuel Kung, Sam Laidlow, who you'll remember won the Lakesman in a scorching fast time a little while ago. Domenico Pasquello, Ronnie Schildnick's down racing, Jan van Berkel. So, 10 really big top names there. So that's awesome. Over on the women's side, the leading women they've got down as racing in their sort of rankings, Imogen Simmons and Laura Phillip. We've also got racing from Great Britain. Who did I see else was on there a little while ago? Fenella Langridge is down there. So she might be a bit of a dark horse for them. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when this time gets equalised and the prize money bonuses get equalised, and whether the PTO are going to consider doing this in the future. That's going to be a real bonus for women's racing, I think, because it's going to, if you're in third place lady with $2,000 or €1,500 on the line, maybe it's possible if you're safe in third, you're going to lock it up and you're going to ease off. But if you think you might be racing for, another €3,000-4,000 of bonus money, it's really going to drive the standards up to see how this happens overall. And I think there's something to be said for this kind of equalised format. So really looking forward to how that's going to happen. That's going to take place this coming weekend. I believe it's the 29th that it's happening. So the other news is ITU Hamburg World Championships. They're extending the field size or growing the field size. So there's going to be 65 men and 65 women racing. It's over the sprint distance. There's also going to be mixed relay races happening as well. And there's talk of it being televised. I think the women's race is televised live and the men's race is going to be a recap. So I know we've got Katie Zafiris and Van Saint Louis definitely on the line. Johnny Brownlee's down to race. Mario Mola's down, and I just saw on his Instagram he's just posted I think it was 13:41 for 5K. So he's in scorching run form. That's going to be a real run to beat on the day. Flora Duffy's down to race. Vicky Holland's down to race. I'm sure Jess Lermonth is going to be racing in the form that she showed at Super League. So let's watch how this all rolls out. And if you're getting a taste for a bit of the old hard work and training action, if you want to join us on Zwift, Tuesdays at 7:15 p.m. UK time, you can join us on the OxygenAddict Triathlon Podcast Power Hour. Workouts guaranteed to raise your functional threshold power and give you a faster, more powerful bike leg this coming season. So get on there. It's the athletes. It's the workouts that my athletes do. We've got intervals at the moment. They're at or around 100% of FTP. It just makes it easier to do it if you're training with other people and you've got a pack of athletes around you. Nobody gets dropped in these workouts. Everyone's attached by a kind of invisible elastic band. So it doesn't matter how fast or how slow you are. We're all going to stay together as a pack, and you'll absolutely get the benefits from doing these workouts. So come along and give it a try with us. Okay, before this week's interview of the week, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors, Peloton Sun Cream. High-performance sun protection designed specifically to improve performance, maximize comfort, and allow athletes around the world to avoid costly sunburn. So think about that. It's going to cost you in terms of your race results or your training performance if you get sunburnt. It's going to feel unpleasant, but also it's going to take away from your workout. So it's a great product that stays on your skin even in the water. It sticks to the skin around your pores, not your pores, so you can sweat freely and the product doesn't get washed away by sweating. So it's one of these all-day products that, I don't think it's a bit of a stretch to say all day, but 6 to 8 hours of protection from one good spraying with Peloton cream. It's awesome. It's like a see-through spray bottle, so it's not white cream, and you genuinely do feel better riding with it on than you would do riding with, the standard supermarket cream. They're official sun protection supplier to British Cycling, Great Britain Cycling Team, British Triathlon, EF Education First Cycling Team. They're also the trusted partner of Olympic gold medalists and Ironman world champions. So no names there, but you can work out who they are. Comes in a 250ml spray for putting on before you ride, and it also comes in a 60ml roll-on that goes neatly in your back pocket so you can carry it with you and reapply it if you need to while you're out there. So check it out over at peloton.cc. They've also got a competition running at peloton.cc/OxygenAddict where you can win a bundle worth £100. So again, that's peloton.cc. You can use the code OxygenAddict20 for 20% off over there. Right, let's head over to this week's interview of the week with Joe Skipper.
Joe Skipper, welcome back to the show. It's great to see you, buddy. You're looking, I've got to say, you're looking very lean and mean there with the sun shining in the background. I'm sitting here trying not to cough all over the screen on you at the moment, aren't I?
Yeah, I'm in the Costa del Norwich, mate, on holiday.
So how have you been? I was looking back. I think we caught up with you just after, it seems like a ridiculously long time and a lifetime ago. It was just after New Zealand we last spoke back in March. So really you were one of the, if not it was the last race to happen before COVID shut the world down, wasn't it, pretty much?
Yeah, it was the last full distance. I think they had a couple of halves after that, like in Mexico and whatnot, but that was the last full distance race. And everything was kind of like still going ahead as normal at that point. I think I was talking to you and I was saying I might race Ironman South Africa, which was only 3 weeks after New Zealand.
That's right.
Yeah, but in the time of me doing New Zealand and getting back, like within 10 days of that, South Africa was off and we were pretty much going into a full lockdown. It just went absolutely crazy in the space of about 2 weeks. But yeah, just been keeping myself fit really since then and picking some goals and just trying to target something like little races and something different. Like at the moment, doing some running track races, done some time trials on the bike, like the National 12 Hour. So yeah, just trying to keep myself entertained really.
Well, we've definitely got to talk about the National 12, haven't we? Because that was, you had form from the year before, obviously, when you'd done a really good ride there, and then there was that mix-up with the course. But talk us through, I cannot imagine, like I'm sure a lot of the listeners can't, being on the aero bars for 12 hours and pushing out, what was it you did, 27 miles an hour for 12 hours average? Yeah,
27.3, 27.4, something like that. It was just under 44 Ks an hour.
That's unbelievable, mate. And when you think back to, what was it like 2010 when you were Manchester Tri Club and a student, could you ever have conceived of riding at 44 kilometers an hour for 12 hours?
No, probably not. And I actually went through 360k because I'd look at the data the other day on Training Peaks which is like a double Ironman in like 8 hours 4, something like that. Because I kind of blew up a bit after about like 6 hours, about 5 hours. And it took me ages to kind of come back and have a good patch. But yeah, I went through like 225 miles, something like that, in just over 8 hours, which is like, that was almost like, I think it was actually over 28 miles per hour for the first 8 hours.
That's ridiculous, Joe.
Yeah, but I couldn't have, I definitely wouldn't have thought I would have done that back when I was in Manchester. But I think the course is quick and when you've got a support crew there helping you as well, giving you bottles, it makes such a massive difference. You automatically save like a kilometre an hour at least just from not having to, stop and get going. But with regards to the actual race and how it feels, like the mental aspect is the hardest part with that, because it just feels like you're on the bike for so long. You can get 4 hours in, 5 hours in, and you're still so far away from finishing. At least with an Ironman, if you're out there for say 10, 12 hours, you've got different things. You've got more people around you. You can talk to people. There's a lot more going on, and you've got the swim, the bike, and the run to break it up as well. But whereas with that 12 hours, it's almost like you're completely by yourself for 12 hours, just doing the same thing, and knowing that every time you come off the tri bars, you're massively slowing yourself down as well. So you kind of just have to force yourself to stay on the tri bars because obviously there's a lot more aero, so you go a lot faster, and really just keep plugging away. That's what it is just constantly keep keep riding and just try and push on for 12 hours.
What sort of mental strategies do you use? Have you got anything like any tricks that you do? Because the one thing that I find when a lot of the athletes I work with, you go through a bad patch and it seems like the best athletes are the ones who can talk themselves through the bad patch almost. And everyone gets to the point, it seems like, where the bad patch gets them and they go, I've had enough. I hate this sport. Give me 50 quid and you can have my bike. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually had a bad patch in it like that, because when we swapped from course 1 to course 2, so like, because there's 3 different courses on it, but each course is about 20 miles, 22 miles, something like that. So basically, towards the end of the course 1, you don't know when they're going to swap. It's completely random. There's just someone standing at the top of the slip road and they just wave you on. And then you're like, oh, right, I'm on course 2 now. But you don't know before the race how long you're going to be there. I mean, you have a rough idea. It's going to be somewhere between 4 or 5 hours, but you don't know exactly when. And the same with your support crew. They don't know when you're going to go. It's just all of a sudden you just don't turn down there. And they're like, oh, right, they must have been sent on to course 2 now. So when we started course, it was a hot day as well. And the last lap of course 1, towards the end of course 1, we didn't go down to where the feed station was. We carried on going. So I went for a period of about 40, 45 miles without a drink. Well, not without a drink, without picking one up. But I probably ran out of water or fluid for about 20, 25 miles. And I was so thirsty. And I almost, I felt like in my head, just thinking, F this, like, I ain't going to do this. This is totally bullshit. Like, I've had enough. I'm going to stop. But I think there's just something in there that as much as you want to stop and you're hating it, you just can't bring yourself to actually stop, if you know what I mean. But I was like thinking, next time I come around, I'm stopping. I'm not doing this. This is rubbish. But also going back to mental strategies beforehand, I always expect that you're going to have a bad patch, because I know every triathlon, every Ironman I've done, even when it's been like some of my best performances, like Florida or New Zealand. Florida, I blew up on the bike and I felt dreadful at one point. But I always know that you're going to have a bad patch, because it's probably physically impossible to do an 8-hour race or a 12-hour race and not suffer a bad patch. And especially if you're going well, because if you're going well, you're pushing yourself close to the limit. So you're going to have these mental bits where you feel bad 1 minute and then you feel good the next, because you wouldn't, if you were just in a training ride and you were just cruising, then obviously everything's under control. But when you're on some of your best days, you're pushing yourself to the limit, and you've got to expect to have these bad patches in there. So yeah, for pre-race, I know that there's going to be bad patches, and I'm ready for them when they do come. And they're the bits where you dig in and you try and get through, because when you've got the good patches, it's easy, isn't it? You're enjoying it and you're loving life, but you've got to save that mental strength for when you get the bad patches, which you have to tell yourself will come. And that's where, and you're prepared for them. You're ready to take them on.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to ask, do you purposefully do stuff like this in training almost to prepare yourself mentally? Because I'm guessing at your level, there's so little physically between you and the rest of the top guys. It's got to come down to like a little mental thing here or there, hasn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah,
push yourself to that level.
I like imagining myself in the race when I'm out training sometimes, and just thinking about how it goes. Normally, like, I'll think about me racing some of the people and like dropping them or something like that. But I think everyone, when they've got a race coming up, kind of like sometimes when they're doing a hard session, just imagines themselves in the race, don't they? Like if you've done rock before and you're coming up to it, you kind of imagine yourself going up the hills. But I mean, I do imagine myself sometimes in the races, and I do think about it like when I'm doing it, but it's not a conscious thing. It's more of like a subconscious thing, when I'm out. You just think about it and you think, sometimes I hope I feel like this on race day, or if I feel like this, I'm going to really push it on this part of the course. And then you kind of imagine it, or something like that. But I don't plan it on purpose, to visualize the certain races. It kind of just happens when I'm out. Sometimes if you're out training by yourself, you think about it.
I imagine a lot of the guys that you race against, you pretty much have put the fear of God into them with that performance in the 12-hour, because I was doing a little bit of reading around it. I don't know a huge amount about the time trialing scene. My dad used to be a tester and he's told me a few stories, but anything more than 100-mile time trial seemed to be utter lunacy to me. And then to imagine doing, like for you, that's 300-mile time trials back to back at above 25 miles an hour. It's absolutely crazy to think that somebody can firstly go that quick, but also can endure that level of, pain for 12 hours in a row.
Yeah, but I think a lot of Ironman athletes would be really good at a 12-hour time.
Do you think so?
Yeah, absolutely, because you've got the nutrition strategy dialed down. You basically just do exactly what you would do for an Ironman. Obviously, if you normally do an Ironman 8 or 9 hours, you just carry it on for a little bit longer. But also
just another 3 hours.
Yeah, but like the amount of carbs you have and everything per hour, you just literally keep going. It is really very similar. It's just that you just extend it on for a bit longer. And then the actual physical toll of the time trial isn't as hard as an Ironman. Like an Ironman is physically harder than the 12-hour. The harder thing about the 12-hour is the mental aspect, but actual physically, how much you're pushing yourself and the intensity of the race. An Ironman is more intense, definitely. Like the run, you really push it hard, especially when because you know where there's people in front of you. Sometimes for me, normally I'm either chasing people down on the run or I'm getting, trying to hold people off on the run. So you're really pushing it down to the wire. Whereas with the 12-hour, you don't necessarily know where you are in the race, and it's more of a race against yourself. Whereas the Ironman, you're racing the other competitors. Or, if you're an age grouper and you're going for a Kona spot and there's someone 2 minutes in front on the run, and that's you've got an idea that's the last spot, you really have to dig in, don't you? You can't run at your own pace. You have to take risks and try and catch them. Whereas it's a bit different in the time trial. And I think the run is the one that really takes it out of you. The impact running a marathon, and you're starting that marathon in a depleted state already. It really takes it out of you. The next day after the 12-hour, you can walk down the stairs and everything fine. Whereas after an Ironman, your legs feel horrendous, don't they? For free, I did a 3K track race 5 days after the 12-hour. Whereas there's no way I could have done that before like after an Ironman.
How did you go in the 3K? I'm interested in this.
8:55, so it was all nice. Right. After 5 days after the 12-hour.
Yeah, that's solid, man. Breaking 3 minute Ks.
I did a 15:08. I did a 15:08 5K on the track on the Wednesday before the 12-hour. So that was like 5 days before, which I thought was quite good because it's like one extreme to the other. It's like what on the Wednesday you're doing a 5K track race, and then the Sunday you're doing a 12-hour time trial on the bike, which is like one complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically, the track races, I've organised them because there was nothing going on. So me and another guy who runs a local run shop have organised some track races, and we've had such a big turnout on them, organising them. I mean, we've had to organise them under certain measures with social distancing and COVID protocols and everything. But we've actually managed to get 6 races on the track, or 4 different races, but 6 races on each night with local runners. And we've had to been turning people away now. And Actual Athletics Norfolk have contacted us and want to make the last 2 races official races with proper timing on like power, so your results go on power of 10 and everything. So we're really pleased with how we've been able to do that, get the local runners and everything involved and organise some actual events so people have got something to train for.
That's really good running, man, to be so close to 15 minutes. Have you got a PB over 5K that you need?
PB, but the target is to break 15, so I've got another one on the 4th of September. So that's the target, and got a 1,500 metre race this Friday and an 800 for Friday after. So compared to running that Ironman, it's completely different.
I love it. Right, give us some predictions then. What are you going to run over 1,500 and 800 metres? What do you reckon?
Well, last time I did both of them was probably at high school. So nice. 1,500, I think, around somewhere between 4 minutes and 4:10, probably. I mean, that's the start of the dark. And obviously the 800 target is definitely sub 2.
2 minutes.
So yeah, sub under 2 minutes. But I mean, I really, it's so different than what I've done. But I mean, the main aim is the 5K, breaking 15 and that would be really nice for me to get.
Nice stuff, man. All right, listen, let's go back a bit. Let's talk about the 12-hour again. I want to see if we can get some idea of like numbers and power and aerodynamics and stuff out of you. What kind of power numbers were you putting out over 12 hours when you rode?
Well, so the normalized power was 285, I think. And the average was around probably a few watts less. I think it was like high 270, something like that, 280. And I think one of the year before I did it, it was actually a bit higher. But I think one of the reasons for that was because I was doing a lot more gym work and because I had a run. So I was doing a bit more cycling at the time. But I think the gym stuff makes a massive difference. You know, for anyone who's going to actually try it again, I think, or any of your listeners, if they're thinking of doing it, I think if you were going into the gym, doing squats, deadlifts, you know, everything like that, get you really powerful, but also you'll just be able to hold that position on the bike so much better, you know, and that is really the key thing, is just, like you say, keep an aero. Obviously you want to hold good power, but you want to be able to hold a really good position, and that makes a difference towards the end, because you actually see a lot of people are sitting up for the last 4 hours, they're barely on the TT bars, and they're losing 3-4 miles per hour, you know, so they fall apart.
Well, I was going to ask you that. What was your sensation in your body over the last, 4 hours, 2 hours, hour? Did you get really sore in your neck and your shoulders and stuff, or are you so well conditioned these days that it was relatively?
It was absolutely fine. Yeah, it didn't feel a problem at all. It was just like, what would I say? It was kind of like really struggling to concentrate because of the effort you put in. I think you're just like a bit, I don't know if it was a bit dehydrated or hungry or whatever, or just because you're just so tired because you're in the zone. But it was really hard to like concentrate. Okay. Because when we were coming back towards the feed station on like the country loop, which was like this out and back bit, it's a kind of like a normal 10 mile time trial course. There was like a little triangle what they'd made into like a feed station. And I remember going through there and I almost overshot the corner because like someone was handing me a bottle, I missed it and someone called me, but it was almost like you were really struggling to concentrate on like sticking to the course, and I did. And it was hard recognizing people because a lot of people were cheering me on, but I didn't realize they were there until afterwards when they posted pictures. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize so-and-so was there, so-and-so were there. And I must have been seeing them, but it was just like, you just didn't take anything in. But I think that was just because you were so depleted. But I mean, in terms of actually holding the position, it was absolutely fine. Like I didn't have any neck ache or anything. I think because I do a reasonable amount in my time trial position and I've just got used to it, it actually feels quite comfortable, to be honest. It feels like you're riding in an armchair.
Nice. Well, talk to us about the bike then. You've been with Quintana Roo for a couple of seasons now, haven't you? And you've got is it Revolver bars and wheels that you're riding at the moment?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I didn't have the Revolver monobar because my bike, I got a new bike from Quintana Roo, which is the PR62, and I hadn't actually raced on it at the time. I think I only got it in like June, but it got nicked when we went to France off the car, and that had my Revolver like monobar, which is actually even more comfortable than the bars what I'm currently using. That is absolutely amazing. So I didn't have that for the 12-hour, and that's actually a bit quicker as well because a bit more aero. So I had my older bars, what I was using for the previous year. I mean, it had the Revolver kind of like a mono bar on it, but not the fully integrated one. So, I mean, it's still a decent setup, a really nice one, but it's not as flashy and as good as the proper one what I had. But I mean, and also being with Quintana Roo has actually helped for a few years now because you can gradually tinker with the bike and get the position. You kind of used to it, and you can keep working on your position, getting it a bit more comfortable, getting it a bit more aero, and you just fine tune it all the time.
Yeah. And what was the deal with getting your bike nicked then? Was this when you were over in France?
Yeah, it was a nightmare. I was driving down to recce the Embraman course and do some training out there in France, just to break things up. And I was going with my dad, and we left Norwich at like 4:00 in the morning. Got the ferry over at about 7:00, something like that. And then we're driving down, we're making good progress, went past Lyon, and then after Lyon it started like falling apart really, like got some roadworks, traffic and everything. And anyway, we were coming to around Grenoble, and it was about 8:00 at night, something like that. And we were like, well, like we really need to stop for tea, because obviously we didn't really want to stop, we wanted to just get there. So we thought, all right, we've been to Grenoble before and it seemed all right. I mean, I don't know if it is from what people say, it's not that nice a place, but it seemed all right when we went there before. So we drove into the city, parked the car up in the city. I mean, there was people around, like walking around, and it looked an okay part, it didn't set any alarm bells off. Went to a restaurant about literally 100 meters away. Bikes were locked on the car, come back, and obviously someone has managed to get the TT bike off while it was like locked on the car, and rode off with it. So it's totally gutting and not a very nice way to start the trip.
No,
luckily I had two other bikes. Yeah, I know. I had two other bikes on there, a gravel bike and a road bike. Like my dad was going to use the gravel bike out here, and stuff like that. And at least, luckily, I had the road bike as well. But the brand new time trial bike, only used it about 6 times. SRAM access on it, and gets nicked off the car. It's like, oh my god! apparently it's organised crime out there from what people have said.
Really?
So yeah, he'll probably nick it, take it to someone else. They'll strip it down, sell the group set off separately, spray the frame in black, sell it off as just a carbon frame, and literally it'll all be. They've probably already got a buyer for it who buys the individual parts, and then he maybe sells the individual parts off separately, so no one knows.
It's a heartbreaker, isn't it? I've had bikes nicked in the past, and I actually got one of my bikes back that had been nicked when I was living in South Manchester, and
Really?
I put an advert up on the Manchester Wheelers, like it was a Quintana as well, actually. It was one of the old Seduzas. I put an advert up for it with a photo, and some guy contacted me and said, there's a guy at my office who's just tried to sell me your bike. I've taken a photo of it. And someone had come and knocked on his door and said, give us 50 quid for this bike and you can have it.
Really?
It was just local smackheads had done our garage over. So I got my bike back in the end, but it's exactly that, isn't it? Sometimes it's just opportunists who...
But that bike, Rob, would have felt absolutely awful for him to ride because to get it on the car, we had to take the race wheels off. So we'd put like the 11-speed group set like wheel on with the new Access. So you couldn't ride it properly. It was just literally on the car so we could keep it on the roof.
Oh, nightmare.
So like when he would have rode the bike away, it would have been creaking and cracking, the gears wouldn't have changed, and then he would have been trying to ride the TT bike with him like never using it before. I reckon he probably fell off like when he got round the corner because it would have felt absolutely awful.
Oh man, I'm really sorry that happened. That's a horrible thing to have happened to anybody, and especially when you're heading out to do... Well, at the time, I suppose you thought you were going to race, didn't you? You were going to go and race Embrun, man.
I mean, I knew it could be a 50-50, but the organiser was pretty set in his ways that he was definitely going to do it. And I thought, well, I'll prepare for it as best I can. So if it does go ahead, I know the course, and I wanted to know whether or not it's TT course, is it TT bike, road bike, would use a disc wheel there. There was loads of stuff. And also for a nice trip away to do some different training, like to break things up, because you can kind of get stuck in a rut a bit if you're in the same place all the time training, especially when you're not going away for racing or anything. It was just nice to be able to go away for like 11 days and train with like my friend Tom. He's from Holland, and my dad came along with us, and we did have a really good time. And we obviously hoped that the race did go on, but unfortunately it didn't. But it looks an amazing course. I don't know if you've ever done that course before, but I would love to go back there and do the race. It looks absolutely epic.
Is it one of those ones with big mountain climbs in Embrun, man?
Yeah. You got the Col de Wizard, which is like tops out like 2,400 meters, and then it has like a few like massive climbs for us, but for the Alps, not that bigger climbs in it. Like at the start, you've got a climb which gains about 500 meters of elevation, and you've got another one towards the end, which is about 400 or 500. So nice, like it basically like probably riding up like the biggest ones you could get in like the Peak District, maybe a little bit bigger than that. But the Izoard is like the main one. That is like a proper horse category climb.
That's incredible, isn't it? 2,500 meters high. And what would you have ridden? Would you have gone with a TT bike, do you think, having seen the course?
Definitely. So we'd have gone for a TT bike, disc wheel and deep section front instead of the tri-spoke on the front.
Yeah.
But like I was talking to Harry from Revolver, and he's talked to someone else, and we thought that if you went from the disc wheel to the other one, you'd lose quite a lot in aerodynamics, and the weight's not massive. It was only like 300 grams.
Yeah.
And if you go from a disc wheel to that, then you've kind of got to go to the decision of going for the most lightweight, shallow section wheel. And then, because you've kind of got if you're going for a weight, you might as well go all the way to the extreme. But the weight's not actually that much. And there's a lot of bits on the course where you would be on the TT bars tanking it along. So I would have gone with disc wheel, which would have probably... I don't know if many people would have done disc wheel. It might have been like the only person, but we think it would have been quicker with a disc wheel. And I would have never thought that until I rode the course. But then after riding the course, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Is it disc brakes as well, the new QR?
Yeah. So even the older one was like with disc brakes as well.
Nice,
so
yeah.
They've had disc brakes for quite a while. So that would be massive for the descents as well. That would have made a huge difference. And then gearing would have been really important on that. Like ideally you'd want like a 30, if you had a 39, 34 was what I was going to run.
Nice. I was going to say that back in the day, the idea of using a disc wheel on a mountain pass is just unthinkable. But now it's disc brakes. It's completely different, isn't it? You're not going to worry about the braking surface of the wheel at all.
The aerodynamics is like you're saving like 10 watts basically with that disc wheel over flat, over like the like even like a deep section front, like back. So basically everywhere where there's like it's downhill or you're going at a decent speed, you're going to be losing so much time. And even when you're climbing, like the disc wheel is obviously really bad when you're like re-accelerating all the time. But when you're on the climb like that, you're climbing for 50 minutes, but you're not constantly accelerating. You're just keeping it at a steady pace, for a long period of time. And it's 300 grams. That's like a couple of swigs of water, really, isn't it? It's like you're not going to really notice that much. Yeah.
Will you go back? Will you go and race it next year, do you think?
I don't know. Like, I would love to, but it's so hard to know because with Kona and everything, I'll see how it goes. But if I get if it does work out well, then I would definitely love to do that course because it looks awesome. And obviously knowing the course now was a massive help. Like if you went out there and didn't know the course, you'd be at such a disadvantage for that race.
Yeah, I can believe it. So what have you got planned for the rest of the season? And have you got any races lined up?
Well, I'm thinking. I have actually. I've got Helvellyn Triathlon.
You go to Helvellyn, brilliant.
Yeah, going to do that, and we've been speaking to the PTO, and we're trying to get like a decent field assembled for that. So hopefully we can get like quite a few of the top guys out there racing it.
Is that right? Who else have you been talking to about coming to do that then?
Well, it's kind of early in the process, really. Like, I've just been speaking to them for the last few days, and they're trying to speak around and they're going to try and speak to some other British guys and see if they fancy it, and so we can try and get like a really strong British domestic field and maybe even get some prize money up the grabs there, which would be really good. Get some good publicity and have a decent race. You never know. Maybe the might do it.
Say again, sorry.
Brownlees might do it. You never know.
I was going to say they've both done it in the past when they were youngsters, so maybe they'll come back and have another crack. I think Ali's still got the course record there.
He hasn't got it now.
Has he not?
It's Alex Lawton who's got it.
There you go.
Yeah. But yeah, so I've got that one, and then after that, I think Challenge Daytona is looking good because I saw a tweet what the governor of Florida put up, and he said that he can't wait to have the race there, and he's really looking forward to it. So to get someone like that, really bigging the race up and saying that he can't wait for it to go ahead, considering the state what Florida's been in with COVID, looks really good. And I think they've been having like NASCAR races out there anyway. So
right, okay,
and because they can really do the race under like good protocols, can't they, with social distancing? The whole race is in the stadium. It'd be quite easy for them to organise. So, but I mean, again, that depends on flights. I don't know what if you can even fly to America at the moment, being in the UK, or if you can get back, or what the deal is with that. But who knows? That anyway, I'll pretend it's going on, and I'll probably look to train for that because it will give you some motivation. And if it does go ahead, I'd love to take part in it anyway.
Yeah, it does look like it'd be a great race, and I think it would be. It's such a balancing act, isn't it, between the needs of public health and trying to get things back going and moving again from an athlete's point of view.
Yeah, definitely. Also, probably I'd like to do Italy if that goes ahead. I think that's probably a 50-50 at the moment. I think that's 26th of September, so it's not that far away, but I mean, other European races have been cancelled, so I'm not entirely sure whether or not that will go ahead. But because I've been training anyway, I'm in pretty good shape, and I'll obviously enter it. And if it does go ahead, then I'll do it. But I won't be booking anything until a week before the race.
It's so hard to know, isn't it? It's so hard to know when things can change.
It's literally impossible to know, and I think you kind of have to keep training because obviously if you don't train, then you just lose so much fitness, and it would take you ages to get back. So, and it is your job at the end of the day, so you need to do it. But you don't. There's no point being like really fit and absolutely banging in the sessions, like going for a peak, trying to peak for something because it might not be there. So I think you just have to keep keep building and making sure you can keep building the training week on week, so you get fitter and fitter, but without really aiming to peak for something. Then if a race does go ahead, you can do it, and if not, then at least it will set you up really well for next year. So I'm kind of like thinking, if a race does go ahead this year, it'll be great. But if not, at least hopefully I'll be in really good form for next year and I can have a great season then.
Well, you mentioned a minute ago about the PTO. You had a nice little surprise, didn't you? Because of your race down in New Zealand, zoomed you right up the rankings. How did you feel when the PTO made the announcement about handing out their prize fund for this year?
Oh, yeah, it was awesome, man. I mean, that race in New Zealand made me so much money. Because like you say, I went right up the rankings, I can't remember where I am in the rankings, like if it's like 5th or 6th or something like that. But I ended up getting like 45 grand from them, so it was huge, really, really helped. And I managed to get an endless pool with it. Well, Master Spas pool, so similar thing to an endless, but different brands. And that allowed me to do some good technique stuff in the pool, and also help you out over this period. I didn't think we'd be going for quite so long without racing. I thought that racing would be able to start. Maybe, it would be good if they could get even like professional racing to start. But I think with Ironman, it's all about, the amateurs, isn't it? That's how they make their money. So they don't really care, because I'm following cycling now, and you can see that the professional calendar for cycling's going ahead. So it would be possible for them to do it, for pros, but they're just not that interested, are they? But yeah, the PTO, that really helped me out, and it's good. And it was really good to see them offering some money down to people in the 100th place, because that would have really, those guys would have really needed that, because if they can't race, they can't get any prize money at all. But it's just such a shame that no one's really been able to have a crack at some races. I'm just really grateful that I was able to race in New Zealand and get a race done before this kicked off, because at least I had something to show for all the training over winter. And then when it was kicking off, it was like, well, I've only just done an Ironman anyway, and it wasn't so bad. But I think if I'd have trained all winter, trained really hard, and then got to April and I'd been dying to race, and then all the races got cancelled, that would have been so much harder to kind of get your head round and keep the motivation going for what could potentially be another year until the following April before you're able to race. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like, unless we get a vaccine, the same thing could happen next year, really, couldn't it? More spikes and then races not going ahead. So, I think the only thing that can really guarantee the season going ahead next year is if there is a vaccine out there. Who knows? I might be wrong, but that's what it seems like anyway.
It was so good to see you get the money from the PTO, because I can still clearly remember interviewing you in your first or second season, and you had that period, you remember, where it was like, I either win prize money. Was it at Texas? I either win some prize money or I go and get a job. Like I can't afford to do it.
Well, the hardest part is at the start. So that's why loads of the guys that can't race now would be really screwed, because it's not like they can't race, so they can't get any money. And it's not like you can really get a job, because I don't think anyone's really hiring, are they? And everyone's losing jobs. So, for the guys that are trying to take a step up to racing pro, it's really, really tough, and they might not be able to carry on, because they literally will be, have no money at all left. I guess what they'll really need is a supportive family, really, to help them. But at the start is when it's hardest, because it's like you need to train full time so you can compete with the guys that are racing and training full time. Because if you're working 3 or 4 days a week, to make that jump up is almost impossible, because the races are so competitive. Especially now, they're even more competitive than when I was starting off in 2012, 13. Because at least then you had other brands that were not Ironman, not Challenge, but they were offering some money, and it wasn't massive, but it was if you won it, it was 1,500 to 3,000 euros, say, and the prize money would go down to 6 or 7. You get all your expenses paid for, and even if you finish 5th or 6th and it wasn't that strong a field, you could still get 400 or 500 euros, which that's all profit, isn't it? Whereas I don't really think there's any of them now. So
yeah,
but those guys, really, really tough, because they're obviously training full time, but they haven't got that much money. But in order for them to progress and get to the point where they're mixing it up and getting some money, they need to take that chance. So it's for a year or two, it's extremely hard. And they're the ones that are going to be really suffering now, because they've got no races and no opportunity to try and get some money back, what they've obviously invested.
Were you surprised to see yourself in the national press? I remember back in the early days of the COVID thing kicking off, I remember reading, was it on the Daily Mail website, that it was triathlete Joe Skipper goes for a 4-hour bike ride. What did you think when you woke up and saw that?
I didn't actually know it was in Daily Mail, he said, but I knew it was on BBC Sport because someone screenshotted it, and there was there was a picture of Lionel Messi, someone else, some other sports person, and then there was me about the bike ride. But God, the amount of abuse I got from that was absolutely unreal. It was just, I had to come off Strava. I had to turn notifications on Twitter. I had to turn them off. So I only got notifications from people that I actually follow, because I just got completely berated. I turned my phone on one day and I had literally, I don't know, it was the notification thing was full.
Really?
So I literally had to turn it off. Loads of abuse. I mean, some people were like saying positive things and didn't have a problem, but there was a lot of negative things. And to be honest, I did come off Strava because I was seeing at the time a lot of people who I was following. You know, they were like some of them were professional cyclists and other things, and they were just going for training rides, and they were getting a lot of abuse as well. You know, it was like people were like really like hunting them down. It's like, you know, if it's your job to go out training, I know people can say you can go indoors and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, riding a bike is not really that bad. You're very unlikely to spread it, and there was hardly any traffic on the roads as well. So, you know, it was that from what I found when I was going out training when the lockdown was really on, it was some of the best rides I've had. You know, I could go on the road. The weather was fantastic. There was no cars on the road, and I barely even saw anyone the whole time. But yeah, a lot of people gave me abuse, but then they're quick to forget that COVID's still around, and those people that give me abuse I see on social media are out training and knocking in 100-mile rides. And as far as I'm aware, COVID is still around and it's in the community, and we haven't eradicated it yet. So they're absolute hypocrites, really.
It did seem like you were made a scapegoat at the time, and as you said, to be on the BBC Sport website and to be in the Daily Mail, I'd imagine it's a bit of a surreal moment when you're trying to work out what the hell's going on, and really in your head, you're just kind of doing what you've always done, and public perception seemed to shift so quickly.
Well, I'll tell you what, Rob. A lot of the people that were giving me abuse were actually triathletes, to be honest. A lot of the general public were actually sending me messages saying like, or I could see it online, like they didn't have a problem with it, and they didn't, you know, they were actually like, didn't really get what all the fuss about. But a lot of the triathletes were the ones that gave me the abuse, to be honest. And I think some of them were like just trying to boost their own profile. You know, God, I can't even think of his name, Passion Fit or something, whoever he is, was Tom Ward. He was giving me loads of abuse, trying to jump on the bandwagon, posting it on Twitter, posting it on Facebook, trying to get people, you know, to kind of criticize me. And then he was saying that he was staying in all the time. Next thing you know, he's out doing 100-mile rides and stuff. Like when they released the lockdown a little bit, you know, he's absolute hypocrite. And unless you're whiter than white, you can't really moan at other people for doing it. But same with a lot of them. They all were quick to jump on me and give me a load of abuse. But then as COVID's still around and the lockdown restrictions get eased a little bit, and the next thing you know, they're out training in groups, organising sessions, going to the supermarket numerous times a week. And you're like, one minute, like 2 days ago, you were saying you weren't going to do anything, and now you're doing everything. You know, I could see some of the stuff they were posting, and I thought I could say stuff, but at the end of the day, I just couldn't bother with it, you know, because you're just going to start arguments. But there was a lot of people, and I still see them now, like, doing stuff. And I saw them as soon as the lockdown restrictions were eased a little bit, they suddenly went from one extreme to the other. And it's like they're obviously not really listening to what they're saying, because the reasons they were saying it was because they didn't want to spread COVID. But COVID was still pretty much the same 2 days ago as, you know, 2 days before the restrictions were eased as what it was then. So yeah, a lot of hypocrites.
Do you use that as fuel for your training? Are you the kind of person who, you know, that gets you fired up to go and smash the sessions out?
Not really. Like, to be honest, I just thought it didn't really like motivate me with my training, to be honest. I just kind of thought that they're pathetic and that they need to get a grip and worry about themselves than what other people are doing. And to be honest, I just came off. It more made me want to come off and not actually go on that social media, because I found it really negative, actually. And if anything, I'd say it has more of a negative impact on you, because you kind of think to yourself, God, should I be doing what I'm doing? You know, is it bad? And I did have to ask a lot of people, you know, like what they thought, and what, you know, it made me question what I was doing. But I actually found it more negative than actual positive. But I didn't let it get to me. I just thought that's just people, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and if that's their opinion, I'll let them have it. But I'll just associate myself with, you know, my friends. And at the end of the day, I just spoke to my friends and, you know, my family and the people that I actually know personally. And like, they thought it was, you know, all right. And, you know, I'd kind of talked with them and said, like, what do you think? Like, tell me your honest opinion. But yeah, it definitely didn't motivate me for what they were saying. It kind of, you know, it was more, you know, kind of got to you a bit, actually, because when you see a lot of negative comments, you know, it does actually get you down, and you do question why you're doing it, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. So the rest of the year then, you've got Helvellyn lined up. Do you have an inkling in your head of going to smash Ali Brownlee's time when you get there? or even Alex Lawton's time? Is it going to be a course record?
Yeah, I want to go as fast as I can and just really go for it, and see what I can do there. I don't really know what I'm letting myself in for on the run because I've never done a fell run in my life. And I know the run goes up Helvellyn, so I don't actually know. Like you look at the times on there, it says it's like 9 miles and the record for the run's like 1 hour 20. So I'm thinking like, what am I letting myself in for if that's the time to go there? But I mean, I want to go as fast as I can and compare myself to those times. But also hopefully, if we can get a really good field, just have a decent race where you're pushed and you're racing against other people, that would be the ideal thing. And just back to like a proper race where you're taking on other people and seeing what you can do. That would be the best thing. And obviously, ideally, I'd like to win. But if we get a really good race there, that would be great.
It's an awesome course, Joe. You'll love the bike course. The bike course is wanted to do it for years
because I remember when I was at Manchester Uni, it was a massive race. And then obviously when I started racing more of the professional races, it was hard to fit in because there's obviously not any prize money there. So you just couldn't really justify it. But I do remember it being like an epic race. And then now with the time of the race, and normally it would clash with something else. But this year, because everything's kind of is all mixed up and there's not really any other racing, it's like the perfect opportunity to do it and give it a good go.
Nice. Well, listen, we wish you all the best, mate. Thanks very much for coming on and giving us an update. Is there anything else you want to update us on before we wrap this up?
Cool. I don't think so, really. But if anyone wants to follow me on social media, I've been doing some videos on my YouTube channel where we're kind of like doing some training sessions and stuff like that, training days. You can also see the training we got up to in Embrun, which was really good. We had a videographer who was out there with us and the coverage is awesome, like some really good drone footage. Or you can follow me on like Instagram, Not Another Average Joe. So thanks for your time, Rob.
Great stuff. Well, listen, have a great race at Helvellyn. We'll be following along, and if the weather's nice, we might even pop up and come and give you a shout along, Joe.
Awesome. Cheers, mate.
Really good to catch up with Joe. Always an entertaining chat with him. Loved hearing his stories. I think it's just amazing what he can do. I don't think he realizes quite how good, how talented, how unusual he is to be able to hunker down into the aero bars for 12 hours and just put out that kind of power. The guy's an absolute animal, and really, really enjoyed catching up with him. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes at Helvellyn as well. For those of you not in the UK, Helvellyn is one of the classic triathlons on our calendar. It's kind of somewhere between an Olympic distance and a middle distance. It's a 1 mile cold water lake swim, a 60-kilometer very hilly bike ride, including the climb of what's called the struggle up Kirkstone Pass in the Lake District, and a very chunky descent off that as well. And then the run goes up Helvellyn, which is one of the country's biggest mountains. And as Joe alluded to there, the reason that the run record is like an hour 20 for the 9 miles is that a good section of it isn't running or fell running at all. It's climbing something called Swirl Edge, which is a proper hands and knees scramble up, not exactly a rock face, but pretty close to, very committing rocky arête. And so much so that on the days when the weather's bad up there, you're not allowed to complete the full course. So hope to get some decent weather for it. If you're in the UK and you want to get up to the Lake District to watch Joe and who knows which other professionals race as well, you've got a couple of weeks to prepare yourself to try and get up there to go and watch that. All right, guys, cracking stuff. I hope you've enjoyed this week's show. Here's some discount codes and deals for you. PrecisionHydration.com, you can use the code OxygenAddict15 for 15% off your first electrolyte order. Peloton.cc, you can use the code OxygenAddict20 for 20% off high-performance sun protection for athletes. And remember, we've also got the competition running there over at peloton.cc/OxygenAddict. Just enter your name and email address to be in with a chance to win a bundle of sun protection from them worth £100. And TeamOxygenAddict.com, the most comprehensive triathlon coaching program for busy age groupers in the world. There you are, I'm calling it, even though it's my own product. Now remember, there's links in the show notes for all these sponsors, so you don't have to remember them. And until next week, have a great, safe training and racing week. I'm Coach Rob Wilby, and you've been listening to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. See ya.